Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how we can take our rendering that we've created from Podium and some information from SketchUp and bringing them together into one beautifully composed image we'll do all of that in Photoshop. So, just so you're aware, once you get a rendering out of the machine, which is always the battle, right? So Podium, Lumion, Revit, which I think their render engine is just crap, but don't get me started on that. But once you actually get the rendering out, it's not done. Okay, so we can sort of get things to a certain level from the render engine. And then from there, what we want to do is take it into Photoshop and put the final touches on it and some other little details and things like that. So how do we do that? Okay, so here are the steps to do that. So let me just show you Photoshop first to show you what I have. I have our finished rendering. This rendering took about 15 minutes. Looking at it after it's done, something I might do differently is tone down the lights on the inside a little because they're a little burned out right now, and I'd rather those be a little less, and then I can work with it a little more. So we'll have to see how it turns out, but it's a little burned out. I also have a line drawing from SketchUp. Okay. And I have a shadow overlay from SketchUp. So let's go through how we got each of these. The first step into sort of extracting information and making sure it's the same size as the Podium render, right? That is key. Because if I extracted a bunch of line work or something like that out of SketchUp and then I tried to overlay it on my Podium render, they're in two different sizes. What good does that do anybody? So here's what you want to do. You want to go up to File, Export 2D Graphic, just like we did for Project 1. And I want to go to Options. So what I did here was I unchecked Use View Size, and I set this width to something that's like a really good rendering quality, which would be at least 2,000 to 3,000 pixels. So I did mine 3,000 pixels. Write these two numbers down. 3,000, 1737. Okay, I'm going to cancel this now. And I'm going to cancel this. So in Podium, what I want to do, once I get my rendering about where I want to switch the size of my output to custom and put those exact dimensions in there. Okay, and you want to click Save. Then you want to run that rendering at that larger resolution. Now, 3,000 pixels, it will take a while, but you could do 2,000 just to sort of get this, get the hang of this down. When you're done, I get this beautiful rendering. Here I am in Photoshop. I just opened it. I haven't done anything to it. And I can go up to image size, and see that the pixels are exactly 3,000 by 1737. Okay, hit cancel there. Okay, so we've gotten our Podium render. We've waded through it, all the painful waiting. We've got something we can work with. Now let's get our line drawing. So I'm going to go to my styles, close all these so we don't get confused. I'll run us back through these so we don't, there we go. I'm going to go to my styles, and I'm going to go to hidden line style. Okay. And I'm going to turn off shadows. The other thing I've done that I already did in the background was I put all my lights onto one layer or tag, and I just want to be able to turn them off. Do you see those would export in a line drawing. They obviously don't show up in the Podium render, but they will export in a line drawing. So I don't want to see them. So I'm going to turn them off. And then I can go File, Export, 2D Graphic. I'll save over the one I have here, Lines, Options. I'm going to just check that my resolutions are the same, and they are, and I'll just click Export. Okay, then your line drawings are done. Your line drawing is ready to go. All right, so I'm going to cancel here. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. So I'm going to hit cancel. Now, I'm going to stay in my hidden line drawing. I'm going to go ahead and turn off edges. So I went from select tab to edit tab, currently have hidden lines selected, and I turned off edges, and now I'm going to go down to my shadows and turn on shadows. So these are the shadows for the view that I already rendered in Podium. So this looks good. My lights are off. It's exactly what I want. So I'm going to do File, Export, 2D Graphic, same routine, double check that I have the same resolution, and save it over, and call it Shadows. Okay, I'll hit Cancel. I've already done it. Okay, we're done with Photoshop and we're done with Podium. Okay, so we've got our image. So now I am in Podium and I have my line drawing. Looks bigger, but let me zoom out one. I've got my shadow drawing and I've got my Podium render. Let's overlay everything in the Podium render file. So the first thing I'm going to do is double click on the layer over here and I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call this Podium Base Rendering or Render. Okay. Now let's go to your line drawing. Let's double click background to unlock it and just hit OK. Now I'm going to do Control A to select all and Control C to copy. I'm going to go back to my Podium render and do Control V. Now it's overlaid, if you look over in your layers, right on top. I'm going to give that layer a new name. We'll call it Lines. Now this drawing, since it's exactly the same size, should overlay very nicely right on top of our Podium base render. So I am going to go up right above the layer there where it says normal, and I'm going to change it to multiply. And now I have all those nice lines that I had in my SketchUp model overlaid over the Podium render. Look how nice those look. All right, so I can tone those back a little bit, maybe 50%. That looks pretty nice. So we're letting the rendering sort of shine a little more than the actual, than the actual line work, if you will. Now, there is one thing I'm noticing, and I think it's because of the refraction of the glass. You can see that, here, let's just zoom in about right here. Yeah, the glass gives this sort of weird kind of offset look. If the refraction was 0, that should be fine. Here's what I would do. Around the frame doesn't bug me too much, but if I go to my lines layer, I'm just going to make a selection right around this window, and I'm just going to delete that line work. No big deal. Okay, it's gone. If you really want to take the time to delete out this line and that line and those lines, you could. But from out here, you don't really notice that, so that's fine. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's go to our shadow layer here. Now here's something I like to do in here. So I'm going to just double click background just to unlock it. And I'm going to press Control L for levels. And I'm going to drag this dark dropper here, or this little handle, and drag it all the way to about where the line starts in the graph here. So I could get those as dark as possible, just like that. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to do Control A and do Control C to copy this. Back to my Podium render, Control V. That looks pretty weird, but change it to multiply. And now our shadows are completely overlaid perfectly over that Podium render. Now, one thing I might do, obviously this really dark contrast look does look actually kind of cool. If all your renderings have this style, there's something to it. But I'm just going to drop it down to, say, 50. Okay, maybe even less. I'm going to do 30. So you can turn that on and off with a little eyeball to sort of see the effect that it has. I think it always adds to the drawing a little bit, sort of gives it a little more depth, seeing that shadow, but it's your call how intense you want them to be. Okay, so we have our primary layers. We have our shadow layer. I'll just rename that. We have our line layer, and we have our Podium base render. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a adjustment layer And I'm going to position it right between lines and the podium base layer. So I'm going to go up to adjustments right here. And I'm going to go to levels. So now I've made a levels adjustment layer. Now I'm going to slide that down and put it on top of my podium render. I don't want these levels to affect the shadow or the line layers. I just want it to affect the podium base render. So that's why it's positioned where it is. Now, I might want to brighten up my image just a little bit. So I could drag this little, so here I am on the layers. If I just click on levels, on the levels layer, I can drag this little slider and make my lights a little brighter. See how that brightens up there? Now we got to watch so the inside doesn't get too burned out. I can move the middle slider to sort of kind of wash out everything just a little bit. And I can bring the dark over to kind of make my darks a little darker. Very handy tool, but it helps you sort of make things pop a little bit. That looks kind of cool. Now you can go up to adjustment layers and I could add, say, a brightness, contrast, hue, saturation. These are some other ones. So just to show you, this is as far as I wanted to take you, but look at this beautiful rendering we've created now. So we've got nice reflection. We've got some detail. We've got some lighting. Podium is really helpful in sort of getting you a finished image pretty darn quickly. So that looks good to me. Like I would say that image is basically done. But if I want to do some more styling things to the image, I could go to brightness, contrast. I could crank the contrast. Now that looks kind of cool. I could bring it the other direction. You could play with that. Brightness, it's kind of fun just to show you what that does. See what else we have here. Oh, hue saturation I like. So here's another adjustment layer. So I can turn these off too. So hue saturation, one way to make your image black and white, right? And then brighten it up or something like that. So there's kind of fun things you could do. Black and whites look cool, or you could just add a little bit of tone and texture to it. You can play around with hue and make all your images have sort of this blue quality, which is kind of cool. So adjustment layers are really your best friend. So I'm just going to delete the hue and the brightness contrast, but really levels is your best friend. I want to make sure that you at least have these 4 layers in your next assignment, which is going to be, hey, produce me an exterior rendering of your project 1 and an interior rendering of your project 1 using Podium and all the techniques we discovered here. And I'll post that assignment shortly. There's only one step we haven't done here, which is save this file. So I'm going to go ahead and do File, Save As. I'm going to save it as a PSD file. I'll call it Podium Exterior Rendering V01. And I'm going to put my name on the front of that. This is a PSD file, so it's a Photoshop file, so it'll have all of the layers with you. Now what I can do is now I can close these other files. I don't need them. Shadows, and I'm going to no on the save. No, I don't want to save them. I've already got them. I've used them. We can even delete those files. This is really the most important file here. And now I can do File, Save As, JPEG. And if I do that, it'll give it the same name. I can hit save and it'll save it as a copy, but you can see I'm still in my PSD file. That's what's really nice about saving to JPEG. It's kind of just, if you choose JPEG, it's just you're saving a copy. So this is it. This is it for rendering in Podium. But I mean, what an easy tool. You could use this this plugin for SketchUp for the rest of your career and produce some really fantastic images. I know tons of professionals that use it. Okay, so now as we move forward in a more robust render engine, it's all the same concepts. It's just more control. So we'll have fun with it. So that's it for this assignment and this portion of the rendering class. So stay tuned for the assignment coming your way.